Hey everybody, it's Dr. Danae Starks, and I am here again with BSBA. We've been bringing some amazing workshops to you all on this week, and today's workshop will be no different. Today we are talking about business insurance. I have been in business insurance and just in insurance period for over the last 15 or so years. I am a licensed agent and I am licensed in all lines. Today, we're going to talk about the business aspect of insurance because guess what? It's really important. We want to make sure that you have the right coverage, that you know where to go to get the coverage, that you know how the coverage will work for you or against you. In a claim situation, we won't really talk about different claims kind of situations because they're all hypothetical until they happen. So I can't tell you this is going to be covered like this, and all that kind of thing. But I just want to make sure that our business community out there has the right information, knows where to go, what things mean, and how to get to the right insurance. So we are excited to be sharing on today, and I am going to be sharing my screen. And so as we move forward, if there are any questions, please type them in the chat. Feel free to share this information, share this video, like this video, all of the above. Go to the BSBA page and follow us. We have a lot going on. So we're going to jump right in. So business insurance, why should you have it, right? Because it's really important. It's just like your car insurance. It's just like your homeowner's insurance. It's just like your life insurance, your work comp, anything else, right? It's necessary. It really is. Even for businesses that are at-home businesses, you still want to have something that covers you because if you actually read your policy for your homeowner's policy, there could be some restrictions on at-home businesses, right? So here you go thinking that you're going to be covered this way, when in reality is that when situations, circumstances happen, there may not be any coverage. So insurance is literally there to protect your investment. We are hard at work as business owners. We don't want anything to come in and impact us in a way that strips everything we've worked for from us. This is what a simple claim can do. A claim can harm your insurance. It can make your rates go up sky high. It can cause you to be ineligible for certain types of insurance carriers. It can cause you to be disqualified or canceled. Listen, there's a lot that can happen when you have a claim. Or there's a lot that can happen when you just don't pay the bill. There's also a lot that can happen when you don't read the actual policy. Understand that when you're purchasing insurance, you are getting into a contract. It's very important to read the contract. In my claims days, when I handled claims, guess what? I handled so many claims where people said, I never knew this is what it was. I never knew I had $1,000 deductible. I never knew this. I never knew that. Read the policy. If I can encourage you to do anything today, read the policy, read the contracts before you get into them, after you get into them, understand what it is that you have, understand what it is that you're getting covered and how you're being covered. It's very, very important, especially in business. And if you haven't learned anything else from COVID, some people did have insurance on their business, and there's a specific type of insurance that could have been claimed during COVID. But if you didn't know, you didn't know. Or if you didn't have the coverage, there wasn't anything to claim. Now, some insurance companies, of course, were trying to, get around that, but the opportunity was still there. So number one, we want to make sure that we are protecting our investment. Again, we work hard. We have invested our time, our money, our resources, and we don't want anything to come through and completely just destroy everything that we've built up. We want to have some protection in place, right? The second thing is not only do you want to have protection, but you want to have protection with a quality company. There's a lot of insurance companies out there. There's a lot of insurance agents out there. Some insurance agents have actual experience in the insurance industry in other areas. Some don't. Some are just sales. They're just sales. And so when you're going to choose an insurance agent, make sure you're choosing someone that knows what they're talking about, knows that, you feel confident that they're giving you the right information, because education is key, especially when it comes to insurance. Trust me, education is key. Make sure that you are with a quality company. So in insurance, they have standard companies, they have substandard companies, they have specialty companies. Substandard companies are your companies that are kind of like owned by a standard company, but they take you if you are SR22, if you've had multiple, fires burned up your house, multiple total losses, things like that for the higher risk, right? We're talking about, people that are at a higher risk, sometimes a standard company. When I say standard, I'm talking about your nationwide insurances, your Allstates, State Farms, those known names. Then each kind of company owns some subsidiaries. And under those subsidiaries are some substandards that will take on the higher risk that the standard company won't take. But guess what? When you go to a substandard company, they're going to charge you for that. They're going to charge you because you are higher risk. So make sure that you are choosing a quality company. Don't go for the cheapest price because you don't always have the best coverage. Again, yesterday on the Living Trust with Miss Teresa, she talked about that. Don't always go for the cheapest price because you may not come out on top with that. You may not come out with anything with that. So don't always go for the cheapest price. Go for the best coverage. That's what you want. You want to make sure that you have enough coverage, number one, and you want to make sure that you have the best coverage for your type of industry and your type of business and your type of operations. So what is business insurance? So it includes so many things. Business insurance is a broad spectrum of things, right? Because there's a broad spectrum of businesses. You have construction businesses, which are different than a restaurant business, which is different than just an office space, right? You have a childcare agency, which is different than an actual school in a school district that has other requirements, right? You have things that are lower risk and you have things that are higher risk. And when we're talking about commercial insurance, which is business insurance, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate coverage limits. Very important that you have the appropriate coverage limits. There are companies out there where you can just go online and purchase a policy for like $300. But guess what? Like I said, the lowest price isn't always the best coverage. So you want to make sure that you're getting what meets your needs and you understand what you have. So there's a lot of factors that affect the rates. There's a lot of factors that affect our rates, right? It could be zip code, it could be square footage, it could be payroll, it could be number of employees, it could be number of directors and officers. If you are an office, but you're like a nonprofit office or something like that, you might have directors and officers. You might have other types of risk that are within the office that is not covered under just your general liability. So these are things that you need to know as a business owner when you're sitting down with your insurance agent and you're getting all these things done. It's very important to ask them, what do I need that's going to fit my needs for my type of business and the exposure that my business brings, right, to the public, right, or to ourselves or to internally to our employees. Because if somebody comes on your premise and they slip and fall, guess what? They could potentially file a claim. If they come into your premise and something falls off the wall and hits somebody in the head, guess what? They could potentially file a claim. If you are an employer and you actually have employees, W-2 classification employees, you're required to have workers' comp. Some people don't have it, but you're supposed to have it, right? So there's a lot of unknowns out there, but we're going to make it known today, right? So we want everybody to get, what did we say was the priority? Education. Education is key. We don't want anybody to not know what they need to know, right? So again, lots of things impact our rating structures, right? So every insurance company is different. And this is why you can go to insurance company A and get a quote for a policy, and insurance company B can quote you at $500 cheaper or $500 higher, right? Because everybody uses different rating factors and rating structures, right? The whole point is that they're looking at, what is the risk? Are you a higher risk or are you a lower risk? What is it, right? What type of liability do you present? If you're a hairdresser, what type of liability do you present? You present an opportunity to either mess up somebody's hair, mess up somebody's scalp, burn somebody's scalp, cut somebody's hair off accidentally. There's all kinds of things that could be wrapped up into the liability exposure from that specific industry, right? If you are a Uber driver, it's tricky if you're an Uber driver because you're not Uber. You're just a driver for Uber and you're not the company, right? You're the individual. So is your personal policy going to pick you up or do you need a business policy? Very important. If for all gig workers, I'm talking about the food delivery drivers, all of that. Very important to know. When I'm on the clock for your organization, who's covering me? Is it the organization or is it my personal? Very important to know. You want to make sure that you know and you understand these things, and that, again, you have the right coverages in place. The right coverages in place, right? So we'll move on. So business insurance, how does it work? So it's, like I said in the beginning, it's a contract. You go in, you purchase your policy, you sign everything, or you e-sign, or whatever it is, you pay your premium amount that's due, and you're in contract. You're in a contract relationship with some sort of a carrier, right? And these are these insurance companies that we know of, like Allstate and the ones that I've named before, and even some that I haven't named, right? So you're either in contract relationship with a standard carrier, a substandard carrier, or somebody that's a specialty carrier, right? Because we all have needs that need coverage. So if you're on the business side of things and you're doing like crane work, right? You're some sort of a construction company that operates cranes, super high risk, right? What do you think they're going to be with? A specialty company, somebody who has a product that meets the needs of a crane company, right? If you're just a general office, you can pretty much essentially just get insurance anywhere, because those are kind of general codes or classifications in the insurance world. So you can pretty much get that insurance anywhere. So anything that's higher risk, anything that's kind of tricky, kind of like your one-offs or specialty or anything like that, you want to make sure that, again, you have the right insurance in place for what it is that you do, right? And the exposure that you're presenting out there. So in this contract, the insurance company is saying that they're agreeing to share the risk, right? It's not all going to be on you. It's not all going to be on them sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be 50-50. Sometimes you might have to come out the pocket some and the other come out the pocket some. Sometimes you're going to have a deductible, which is your share, and sometimes you're not if you choose to have a zero deductible. Pay attention. Again, look at your contract, see what you read. Understand that if your building is impacted and your personal property is impacted, you may have a deductible for that. If your general liability is impacted, you may not have a deductible for that because that's not really common. Or if you added a deductible to your general liability, it's very uncommon somebody would do that, but it happens. And sometimes people don't know that it's happened and that they signed it and agreed to it. You may fall into a circumstance where you have to come up with a deductible. There's a shared cost here. So in the event of a covered loss, the insurance company pays for the financial losses that are incurred. Now, it's supposed to be up to the policy limits, but again, it's based on the contract. So I know sometimes people say, well, I did this and I did that, or I fell into this circumstance or that circumstance. Well, there's a lot of factors in between, right? There's a lot of factors in between. What does your contract state, right? What were the facts of the loss? Was it a covered cause of loss? That's what you want to ask, right? You need to know what are the covered causes of loss and what are things that are excluded from this policy. Very important information to know, because if you have a loss that is not a covered cause of loss, and when I'm saying these words, these terms are highlighted in your policy. So look at them. You want to look at your covered cause of loss, right? And you also want to look at your exclusions. What types of things are not covered by this policy? And if it's something that you need covered, then you're going to have to go out and seek out that particular type of insurance. If it's something that you don't need, you can just move on with life and keep the policy you got and keep on going, right? So at the time of the loss, as a business, we're talking about business insurance. As a business, you typically would be the one to file a claim. Now, there are rules and regulations in the state of California regarding filing claims, timeframes, right? You don't have for the rest of your life to file a claim on something that happened 30 years ago, right? It just doesn't work like that. There's rules and regulations in place so that things don't go on forever. And this is what the different various types of insurance, and each type of insurance has its own term kind of when you have to file by. So like workers' comp is like within 24 hours, 48 hours, something quicker because you're dealing with employee injuries. Your regular car accident, might be this, might be that. So you want to make sure that you are understanding what your policy is telling you. You want to make sure that you are understanding what is a covered cause of loss and what is not, right? You want to understand the risk factors that you are presenting to either the public or to internal or external. You want to know these things and you want to understand these things because guess what? This is the type of thing that takes people out. There's a lot of statistics out there that say that a lot of companies don't survive within the first 5 years because of some sort of a loss and because of some sort of insurance faction that they didn't know about, that they either didn't know they had to have or they just didn't have it. There was no coverage for this. They just didn't know, right? And so they failed. In the event that an incident is a loss that's suffered by the customer of a company or injured party, the injured party is likely to file a claim against the liability of the business, right? And it makes sense because why, as a business owner, take on that responsibility personally when you have insurance? So it doesn't mean that your insurance company is going to pay out on every single claim every single time, because that claims rep may find that this is not a substantiated claim, right? So they can deny it. So don't be afraid, okay? Very, very important. Do not be afraid to share the insurance information with somebody who's coming to your establishment saying, hey, I fell the other day and I got hurt. Well, guess what? You should be confident enough to know and say, hey, here's our insurance company information. Call them, file a claim, and let them handle it. And it's out of your hands, right? They'll call you, they'll get a statement, they'll call them, they'll investigate. Your insurance company works for you. They have to investigate. They have to do all these things. So don't be afraid. So many people say, oh, if somebody come and hurt themselves over here, I don't have no insurance. I'm not filing claims. Well, guess what? You would want to have some insurance and you would want to file a claim because it's off you. Otherwise, you're personally going to take this on. And why would you do that? It could end up being a $25,000, $50,000 claim, or it could end up being nothing. It could end up being something that your insurance claims, the claims rep says, hey, there's nothing substantiated here, and you're done. That's it. That's the end of that. They've denied the claim. It's gone. The person who comes and who slips and falls at the restaurant, usually restaurants have cameras. You should be calm. Don't get frustrated. Look at the cameras. Make sure they work. Number one, make sure it's on, right? You're a convenience store owner with the CCTVs everywhere. Make sure they're on. Make sure they're powered on and working and in the right areas and pointing to the right directions that cover every aspect so that you can see what happened. That way you have, nothing to worry about when you file your claim because, again, the claims rep will assess. The claims rep will determine the liability or who's at fault. They'll determine who's at fault and whether they're going to pay from your side of it or the other party's going to pay. Sometimes it can go into this, way far off in legal land and all these kinds of things. But I want to make sure that you have this fundamental foundational knowledge so that you can avoid some pitfalls. And some of these pitfalls aren't small. They're very, very huge. Trust me, I've seen it over the years. I've worked with so many attorneys over the years. Like, oh my gosh, I've seen it all. I've done every type of insurance in the book, and I've handled claims on everything in the book. I've seen it all, even in cases where you would think that they're not going to pay out. There's no way. They end up paying out because of California law. We live in that great state of California, and sometimes it doesn't work out in our favor. So what is covered by insurance? Insurance covers a multitude of things, right? There are different types of insurances for different types of things. They have something called a BOP policy, which is a business owner's policy, which combines a couple of things, but not everything. So we'll just go over these things. The general liability, very important. If you're doing most of the time, if you get into a contract with somebody else, if you're working with another business, and I see all the questions coming in, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna get to them towards the end because I see some questions coming in. They're really good, so keep them coming. But if you're working with anybody else, they're probably going to require general liability. Sometimes it's required because of work purposes or contract purposes or whatever. But you should just have it. If you're going to have any insurance in the world, you should just have general liability for your business. This is the protection for somebody else, right? So you have maybe you're maybe you have a gym, maybe you're a fitness coach, right? If you think about it, let's just think about it for a minute. When we go into a gym, there's risk all around us to get hurt, right? We could slip and fall. Somebody over here lifting weights could drop it on our foot. Somebody over here could accidentally do something that causes an issue. Maybe the machine is not working correctly and it malfunctioned and it hurt us, right? General liability is their policy, the business's policy to protect or to insure against things that are happening to the other party. So it's not for you, it's for them, right? Your property coverage is for if you own the building, you're going to get building insurance for your building, and that's your building limit. You want to make sure that your building limit is enough, okay? Because if there's total loss and your building limit is under what that building was worth, and they pay out the policy limits, guess what? You're going to get less money and you're going to be stuck. So you want to make sure that your building is valuated at a good amount that's going to cover the true value of the building. There's also something called replacement cost, and there's actual cash value. Very important when you're looking at property stuff, not just the building coverage, but when you're looking at the business personal property. This is your printers, this is your large equipment, this is your TVs, anything that is not a part of the building. So if you mounted TVs, that's not a part of the building. You actually physically mounted them there, right? It didn't come with the building. It wasn't in the building, right? So it's separate. It's business personal property. If you have 1,000 TVs that are valued at $1,000 each, and you only have $20,000 of personal property coverage, guess what? You're going to be up the creek $80,000 or whatever it is, right? It's only going to be a lot of money that you're going to be up the creek because you don't have enough coverage. So you want to make sure that you're reading your contract and you know how much coverage you have. Make sure it's enough. General liability at minimum, general liability should be $1 million. 1 million versus 2 million. That's 1 million per aggregate and 2 million per occurrence or whatever. Maybe I switched those, but it's 1 million, 2 million. There are some carriers out there that will actually give you an insurance policy of general liability that is $500,000. And it's really not that much more to get $1 million, really. It's not, trust me. There are carriers out there that are good that will give you $1 million general liability policies for $350 a year, okay? That's like, we spend $350 on hair, on, all kind of frivolous things. So that's nothing. It's nothing when you need to be protected. Okay. So you have your commercial vehicle insurance. Very important. Hello. If you are driving for your business, like say you have a fleet, right? And say you do transport or you do something of that nature. If you're a limousine company, you definitely need a commercial vehicle policy, right? For your limousines and your large vehicles and things like that. Because on your homeowner's policy, your standard coverage, your standard vehicle policy, not your homeowners, but your standard auto policy is only going to cover up to a certain number of passenger vehicle or certain axles, right? These are things people don't know because they don't read the policy to see what to actually cover. So make sure that you are within those lines of this is my type of business. If I'm a restaurant and I have a van that goes and does deliveries and things like that, I need a vehicle policy because this is not covered on my general liability for my business, and it's not covered on my personal property for my business, right? It's not covered anywhere else, and it's not covered on your personal auto policy. So completely separate coverages for completely separate purposes, right? Professional liability, very huge. If you are, I'm an insurance agent, I'm licensed, and I have to have professional liability because I have a professional license. If you're a doctor, if you're in certain professions, maybe you're a real estate agent or something of that nature, you have to have professional liability, and it's great to have because sometimes people screw up. Sometimes we screw up. We give out misinformation or not intentionally, but sometimes people do intentional things that have become fraudulent, and it taps into your professional liability. Exposure is now exposed, right? Product liability. This covers specific products and the fault that arises from those products. So it could be a, like you see those recalls on things that are out there, on different products that are out there. You get either you see the commercial or you get the little thing in the mail and say, hey, this product's been recalled, right? That's covered under product liability. That's its own separate coverage. So again, I see the questions coming in, and I'm going to get to them all. I only got like 2 more slides, so I'm going to get to them all, or 1 more actually, very quickly. What is covered by business insurance? So we're continuing what we just talked about. So workers' comp, completely separate coverage. All of these are completely separate coverages. Do you need workers' comp? This is a good question, and you probably have to think about it and answer it. Do you have employees? That's the bottom line. Even one part-time employee in the state of California says you have to get workers' comp insurance. Done. It is required. That's just what it is. And you would want to have it in the event that you have at least one part-time employee. You need workers' comp insurance because guess what? It's going to protect you against worker injuries and illnesses that are derived from the work environment, right? If you're a contractor and you have an employee who's up on a ladder and they're washing windows and something malfunctions on the ladder or on their strap and their harness and they fall, guess what's going to cover it? You have enough money to cover something so substantial like that? No. You want to have workers' comp insurance. You want them to handle this because trust me, employee claims can go on forever and ever and ever. You don't want to pay this kind of stuff out of pocket. Trust me. Loss of income. This is your business expenses, like your rent and wages and things like that, if you can't operate your business. So remember in the beginning, I talked about there was a coverage that could have been claimed during COVID. This is it. If you had this coverage on your policy, it could have been claimed during COVID, and you may still be able to file a claim. You could try. Every carrier is different, but you could try. Because guess what? Businesses were shut down. You could not operate. But you have to have property coverage in order to have this coverage. So if you only had GL, you can't file anything. So key person insurance. This is when you have like one head person and you want them to be covered. You want to be able to recoup some sort of financial gain in the event that this key individual can no longer work, they're incapacitated, maybe they passed away. It's also known as key man insurance. So it's really common. You see this on life insurance, but it's also a good coverage to have on business insurance, especially with a small business owner, because sometimes it's like a family run operation. And if something happens to the owner, then it creates kind of like other harms for the other individuals that are affected by that person's transition. So great coverage to know about and to potentially put in place. Cyber crime insurance is also known as cyber liability. This is huge right now. Who just got hacked the other day? Somebody. The oil. Look at that. The whole oil thing just got hacked, and all these people can't get gas, and gas prices are rising, and all these things. Cyber crimes. This is good for the average everyday business because guess what? We do so much cyberly, if that's a word, if I could say that. We do so much online. We do so many transactions. Some of us do financial transactions where we have people's social security numbers and their personal identifying information. You want to make sure you got this coverage in place. Trust me. Because in the event that your systems get hacked or somebody comes in and logs in accidentally and starts stealing people's information, the consumer is going to come to you because that's the last place they know that they expose their information to. So probably going to come to you and say, hey, I came here and then all of a sudden my information was stolen. Make sure you have this coverage in place. Records retention, which is also called like data. It's a data coverage. And it just covers the loss of important data and financial records. You know, if you have a situation where the whole place burns down or all your computers are stolen or something of that nature, there is coverage for your data specifically. Specialty coverage. Again, we talked about the coverage that's just for your day-to-day kind of average businesses, lower risk. Specialty coverage covers higher risk businesses, right? So a higher risk business could be like I said, somebody who operates cranes, right? That's not normal. Somebody who's an underwater welder, that's not normal, right? What's the risk there? It's very high that somebody might drown because they're underwater. Sure, they have safety protocols, sure, they have training, but the opportunity still presents itself, right? So this covers specific types of businesses and the specific risks that those businesses present to others, right? So it could be a landlord policy, really. It could be something where it's a vacant land policy, where there's no building, there's no structure, there's no parking lot, there's no nothing. It's just land. And a lot of people own a piece of land. Vacant land coverage, important, very important. Um, you have like farmers, they have their own farm products specifically for farming operations, farmers and the whole nine, sheep, cattle, the whole thing, trust me. And sometimes, on those back roads, I know like some people are here in Sacramento or Elk Grove. Sometimes, there's a lot of back roads in all the surrounding suburbs. And sometimes you might see like a horse on the side of the road or a cow. That's somebody's horse or cow, right? And guess what? Those horses and cows cost a lot of money. So, I mean, you could have a horse that's worth $2 million. And if somebody hits it because it got out the gate and it's on the side of the road, who's going to pay for that, right? Need to have some coverage in place. Even if you're putting on a one-day event, there are special event policies. These policies are separate from your regular policy. Now, if you have a regular policy, use that, right? You don't need to purchase anything in addition. But if you don't have a policy, or maybe it's something that your policy doesn't cover and you just want to get event coverage because you just want to, make sure that it's covered independent, then you want to make sure that you get a special event policy. And typically these aren't very expensive for the coverage that you get. Again, you don't always want to go with the cheapest because you could end up with lower coverage that way. Or you could go with the cheapest and have high coverage, but not have a quality experience. Because the last thing anybody wants is to get into a situation where they have a claim or they have some sort of incident, they go to their insurance company, and then all they deal with is, oh, let me transfer you here, 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 and here, and nothing ever gets resolved. That's frustrating. Trust me, it's frustrating. So just want to make sure everybody knows what the opportunities are that are out there for risk factors, liability exposures, but then the types of coverages to help mitigate those risks and mitigate those exposures. So how much is business insurance? This is like the key thing a lot of people want to know, right? And I see your questions. I see them coming in. I promise I'm getting to them. This is the last slide, folks. So the cost of business insurance, it varies because, again, every company, you have standard rates, but what if I have to build you a policy, right? What if you do so many things and you don't want 5,000 policies with 5,000 companies? You want one policy with one company to cover everything. Well, sometimes you got to have a policy built for your specific needs, right? That's going to cost a little different than a policy here, a policy here, a policy here, and here, right? You're going to pay separate fees, separate costs. It could just be so convoluted after a while. There are so many factors that go into rating. Back in the days, we could do our own rating. We could literally go in the system, key in some stuff, and rate a policy. And I don't know if that's still a thing now because I'm not on that side of insurance anymore. But it was an opportunity. Now you have, like I said, you can go online and just go to some company and just purchase a policy. Somebody told me about the new one, the three-way or something like that. And they said they went on there and it was just astronomical pricing. And maybe they chose some options that weren't necessarily what they needed or what have you. I don't know. But it's that easy and that convenient these days to go online, just pick an insurance policy. But guess what? Again, read the policy. Make sure you're getting what you need to get. A small home-based business can often have good insurance. Like I said, a GL policy, that's a good policy for about $350 a year, depending on the risk factors, right? Now, the more questions you answer yes to, as far as the things that you do and the things that your business does, that's going to create a higher level of risk, which means that it's not just this standard business anymore. It's not just that you have an office. It's that you have an office that runs, some whole nother factor inside of it that is way, way, way out of sorts for an average insurance company. So you want to be mindful of that. You want to be mindful of kind of what you're introducing into your business, even after you get the policy. You want to be mindful of, are you going to have pets on premise? Are they allowed? Maybe your animal shelter. High risk, right? You got all kinds of pets there, and they're random pets. They're not even pets that are trained half the time, or they might have pets that are trained half the time. But guess what? Sometimes animals just, they have their own mind and they do what they want to do, and they can bite somebody, they can attack somebody, they can react in a certain way. All those types of things can happen. So again, when you're looking at pricing for insurance, sometimes it's higher because the risk is higher. And if this company is saying you pay $100 and we'll pay $1,000,000, guess what? They're saying we're going to take on the risk and you don't worry about it. Just pay us a little, we'll pay the big amount, or either way, we'll fight on your behalf because you're paying us to do that, right? So the cost of insurance can be reduced with effective risk management practices. Very important. It's very important to have a safety plan in place. I don't care if you are one person home-based business, have a safety plan in place. Have a contingency plan in place, right? Have some protections in place. If you are an at-home business, do you have a burglar alarm? Do you have a fire alarm? Do you have the CO2 sensors and all those kinds of things in the home or in the space, right? Where is your data housed in your house? Is it housed in a space where any and everybody can just go to your computer and see my information? I would hope not, because that's going to be a problem, right? It's going to expose data to other people. Then you're going to have a whole nother problem, right? Are you cooking in a house that's dirty and folks going to get sick? Listen, risk factors are everywhere in every business that we have. So again, you want to be mindful of those things. You want to be mindful of what you're doing, know what you're doing, and know how your insurance can benefit you and know what coverages to get. I'm going to stop sharing the screen because I see some questions that came in, and I told you all that I'm going to get to the questions, and I am, because I love them. So we have, does one policy for a building or office cover multiple businesses? It depends. So usually it doesn't. Usually the insurance is for the business that is on the policy. So that's that, right? As far as the business. Now, there is such a thing as premise liability, right? If you're on the premise, or if it's a premise, it's going to be covered one way or the other. But if you have multiple businesses within one space, each business really should have their own insurance because they have their own property. They have maybe their own clients. They have their own exposures. All of them should be kind of similar. If you're going to be in the same space, you want people to be kind of like and kind a little bit. But as far as liability, that can cover multiple businesses because that's more of a premise thing, right? That and it's beyond the premise actually, because your liability follows you. But if you have multiple businesses, it's kind of hard if there's a slip and fall to say, it wasn't my business, it was their business. It wasn't their business, it was their business. It gets convoluted. So at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that some of those lines are clear. Thank you for the good information. Thank you, Ray. That's my brother, y'all. We gotta go out back if you slip and fall in my spot. That's it's funny, but it's really what happens. Needed the information. Thank you. Can you start small with your coverage? Yeah, you can start small. But small means minimum. That means minimum premium. That's what small is. So minimum premium could be $350 a year, could be $500 a year. Those are usually standards. Now you have certain types of policies and certain lines of coverage, right? So when we talked about general liability, property, things like that, those are lines of coverage, right? So when you're looking at your policy, you'll see general liability, and then you'll see like what it covers, personal property, and what it covers. These are lines of insurance. So you can start small based on the line. That minimum is going to be what it is, right? You can't go below the minimum. That's going to be set, and that's going to be standard. You can go above the minimum though. So if you want to start out small, you're basically starting at the minimum or slightly above. So we got it. Yes. Yes, most vendor, yeah, definitely need an event policy if you don't already have your own policy. Some people have their own policy, and that's sufficient for the venue, usually, when they have enough coverage on their own policy. But sometimes people want to go to a specific venue and they don't mind paying the extra $100 or whatever it is for the 2-day event so that they can just specifically have coverage for that event while they're there that is completely independent of their actual policy. Can I make an appointment? Yeah, we can definitely make an appointment. I'll put my contact information up here. Answer Ray's question. Yeah, thank you. Yep, the commercial vehicle for the truck and trailer. I think, yeah, I think that's the cupcake lady, and I have seen your trailer, and yeah, definitely hope you got the right stuff on that. Yep, definitely can set up a consultation. Writers are different. So a writer, so if we're looking at terminology, a writer is on a life insurance policy. On a business policy, on a commercial policy for your business, you're going to look at endorsements, right? They're essentially the same thing. They just function based on policy type. So your writer is going to be the additional coverages that you add to your life insurance policy. Your endorsements are going to be the additional coverages that you add to your commercial policy. So for example, you have you're a barber. And so you may have insurance, you may have general liability insurance, right? Well, maybe you need to get professional liability. Maybe you need to get directors and officers liability. That wouldn't happen but it shouldn't happen for a barber. But I'm just saying, these are examples of some of the additional coverages that you could endorse onto the policy that are not common coverage with the policy. Because when you just get a basic commercial general liability policy, it's literally basic. Like it's just going to cover what it covers and not the other types of liability exposures that are out there, right? It's just going to cover your standard stuff. So again, I encourage you all to read your policies, read the contract that you signed, because it's something that we agree to. I don't know how many times, countless times, I dealt with so many situations where people said, I never signed that. I never this and that. Well, it's illegal for the company to just put something on you as far as insurance that somebody didn't sign for, right? And sometimes we've had our insurance so long that we think we know what we got and we don't. And sometimes we don't know what we got until we have a loss, have a claim, and we find out that we don't have what we thought we had. So we want to put everybody ahead of the game. We want to make sure that you know up front. We want to make sure that you have the right coverage in place. Thank you so much, Ray, for the great presentation. Thank you for that. Again, my name is Dr. Danae Starks. Again, everything, and this is just an FYI for anybody out there that sees an insurance agent that is marketing without their license information posted. They're not supposed to do that. So I have to put my license. If you're wondering, like, why she got her license up there, I have to. It's the law. It's our ethics. I have to comply. So license is up there. Contact information is up there. Anybody needs to contact. You could even set up a consultation through BSBA. You can go to the BSBA website, set up a consultation, and we can talk about helping you all with your insurance. Again, very, very, very important. Do want to say thank you to Selena, our president, for allowing me to share this information. It's very valuable. Again, we're out here helping small businesses. If we're going to help, we got to help all the way, right? So we want to make sure that everybody has what they need to have and have enough coverage to cover things that they need to cover, right? And again, when you're talking right now, this is just business insurance. We haven't even gotten into personal line stuff or anything else, life or anything like that. But again, wanted to give some quick tips. This presentation, we're going to be uploading it to our website. So give us a couple of days. We'll upload it into our toolkit. If anybody needs any refreshers, reminders, this presentation can be available to the community out there. Again, thank you all for your time. If there are no other questions, I thank everybody for your time. We want to give you back your day on this great Wednesday. And again, thank you to all of you who joined us. Share this presentation. Again, it's a wealth of in-depth information, and not just from any old perspective. Like I said, I've been in it for a long time and I've seen a lot. So wanted to make sure that the community has this information and the inside information, because I don't want you to be stuck out there without insurance or with a big bill or without any coverage or without the right coverage, because I care. So again, thank you all so much. And if there is nothing else, have a great night, everybody. Join us on Monday. We're going to be having another webinar with attorney Lauren McDonald on trademark and copywriting. We had one before a couple of months back. This one's going to be similar information, but different. We encourage you to join us on Monday. We'll be live again at 4 o'clock. See you all then.